Hi, welcome to Carolina Crafting. I'm Jackie Jens. Today we're in the Ranger area of North Carolina. That's near Murphy. It's beautiful up here. It snowed this morning. That's a plus. We're here at the studio of Joanna and Lizz with 2 Z's. But we're going to talk to Joanna first. Joanna, how'd you get started with stained glass?
I got started in stained glass about 30 years ago.
Oh my.
Yeah. I was teaching nursing at Austin P up in Tennessee, and I took a continuing ed class and fell in love with it. The teacher was wonderful. So since then I've been doing it continuously as a hobbyist, and now doing it still as a hobbyist. And
But professionally too.
Yes.
She carries stuff in Carolina Crafting in Brasstown, North Carolina.
Yes.
Just a small little plug
yes,
there.
Yes.
Which is good. Explain how it starts. I know you've got a great selection of glass.
We have a great selection of glass, and the first thing I need to tell everyone is when you learn stained glass, you will learn 2 different ways. One is using the lead cane stripping, and that is used in big, huge panels and cathedral windows.
Ooh.
But it also can only be used one-dimensional, so your piece has to be flat. And I learned under my teacher the Tiffany method, which is from Tiffany.
Like the lamps.
About 1880.
Wow.
And it requires then that each piece must be wrapped in a foil rather than in a lead cane. But it allows you to do it in such a way that you can use tiny little pieces of glass, so you can make smaller items. They weigh less, and you can make them 3-dimensional.
And also, they're very sturdy. I've dropped a couple of your pieces.
Oh, yes.
They do not break.
They are.
They don't.
Very, very
They're
sturdy.
really sturdy. So I
Yeah.
was really impressed. Maybe because it's small and the lead's holding it together.
Right, right.
Yeah, that's good. I also noticed that, like this sheet, this little panel is like almost $11.
Yes.
How many items can you make from this?
It depends on what you're making. I can give you, right over there's a snowflake. Grab that snowflake. See it there?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
And this is actually, this class is called glue chip. And this is from it, but when you're drawing it off, you wouldn't draw it like that. You would draw it straight down, your pieces.
Right.
You always use your glass to the best advantage.
It's like I use fabric.
Exactly.
Right.
You try and save every little piece.
So then it's not truly as expensive as it looks, because you're using smaller pieces and get lots of stuff.
And I will tell you that your glass that is orange or red is about 3 times as much.
Really?
Oh yeah, this would be about, well, this one wasn't as, this is probably 40 years old, but you know, some of your glass, red glass is like $20, $25 a sheet.
Wow.
Because they use gold salts in it.
Oh.
And your browns and your greens are the cheapest. But yellows, oranges, and reds, they're out of sight. So you really have to be careful and think through what you're going to do before you start.
And with pricing
cutting.
too, because these are, we'll have these at my shop.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yay, I love these snowflakes.
Yeah.
These are so cool.
And there is such an array of glass. When I first got started, they just had basic glass, and now there is just every type of glass you can imagine, from glue chips
and textures and
textures.
Marbling.
This is a seedy glass. Some of it's transparent, some of it's translucent, some of it's iridized. This is a purple glue chip glass, which is just delightful.
I like purple. And this is marbled.
That's marble. That would be used more for Tiffany lamps. Because you can't see through it, but the light reflects on it and makes it beautiful. If you're doing sun catchers, things like that, you want it to be more translucent.
This piece you mentioned was 3-dimensional.
You can see where its wings can be attached to come out, and its tail. And how heavy would you say that is?
It's kind of heavy, but not that. It's probably, I don't know.
Yeah, but it's really not that heavy.
It's not
when you
that
look
heavy,
at
no.
it and you think it's
you
glass.
think it would be much more, especially with
right.
all the lead on it.
But that's what Tiffany allows you to do, make pieces like that.
I love this piece. This is so
Those
cute.
are plant stakes, and again, The Tiffany method allows you to do it.
Because
Oh, yeah,
of the
'cause
little nose.
I mean, look how big its nose is.
That's so cute. What a cutie.
Also, using the Tiffany method, this is another
Yes, I think I have a
idea.
piece of that at my craft shop.
This is a bear family.
Actually, I've sold that piece, so I'm
Okay.
going to need a new one. This is cute, the way you've staggered them and layered it.
Right, and how they're put in. Again, the Tiffany method allows you to do it, where you can do just about anything you want in glass, and that my mind is continuously working.
It's so cool. This is cute.
The
The little night light. Yeah.
You can do
These are
all
really
sorts
cute.
of night lights, and all the designs that we come up, I design them, and Liz helps, because you go out and you look at the nature, and you look at things, and you look at flowers, and you say, oh, I can do that.
This be opaque. You'd use that because you just want it to glow. You don't want the light to shine through. So,
Exactly.
yay, I learned something.
because it goes to the light bulb.
Yeah, that's so cool. Okay, let's see how it starts. We're here with Liz, the other half of the stained glass duo. Liz, how'd you get started in?
I got started through Joanna. She taught me, and when I first got started, well, when I couldn't stand the sound of the glass
Oh,
being
that's
cut.
true, yes.
And I didn't think I'd ever be able to do it, but it doesn't bother me anymore, unless I talk about it. But other than that, it doesn't. And I just fell in love with it, absolutely. And the only thing I don't do is grind
Ooh.
because of my fingernails. But they stay broken now anyway, so I might as well learn that. But
That's the sound that bothers me, is the grinding part.
yeah, the grinding didn't bother me because I can file my nails and that doesn't bother me. But just the sound of the cutter running along the glass.
Yeah, it's a funny
And
sound.
you got to hear that sound. You
Right.
want to hear that sound, so you know you got a good cut.
Yep. Okay, today you're working on a quilt block.
Correct.
It starts out with, I think, Joanna's going to do the talking for that, and you're going to do
Yes.
the work part.
She's going to do the work part
Okay.
while I talk. But each piece that we work on has a pattern. And that's a pattern that has been drawn off. And it's on paper so that you can see through your light box. You have to work on a light box where your light is underneath, and then it shows through your glass. And then you follow your pattern and draw it. It's kind of like doing a puzzle, more or less. You draw your puzzle off, and then you cut it out, and then you have to reassemble your puzzle at the end in order to solder it together. After drawing off the pattern, the next step in the project is cutting it out. And Liz is demonstrating cutting it out, and hopefully you can hear that lovely noise.
That I don't mind.
And these are called running pliers that she's clipping it with, and that will, you know, after you score your line, it will take your glass apart, and then she's going to demonstrate scoring each one and then using the running pliers. And then when we clip them, to keep them separated, we put them in little bowls. Otherwise, if you're working on 4 or 5 things at a time, you end up not knowing what you're doing. Now the glass cutters are self-oiling. As you can see, this is a plastic handle, and it allows you to put oil into the handle. So you always have to have the point of your glass cutter in oil at all times. The next step is getting your glass smooth on the outside. As you can see right now, it would cut you, and you could not do anything with it. So you have to take each piece separately and grind it on a grinder. Now this is kind of loud. There's various types of grinders. I have an inland grinder, which works very good. It has a 3/4 inch head because I'm working with small pieces, so I don't want a larger head. But there are interchangeable grinder heads of all different varieties, all different sizes. In fact, they have it where you can actually use a very, very tiny little grinder head, and you can put holes in your glass. and then you can hang it and make wind chimes. But I'm going to demonstrate how you would grind your glass, and there is a water well underneath this and a sponge. It has to be wet at all times to keep your glass wet. After you finish grinding, you have to thoroughly wash each piece of glass in hot soapy water. Let it dry and check it for any places that you may have missed grinding. Then you need to foil each piece with a copper foil, and this is what makes it the Tiffany method, is using the foil. Now, foils come in different widths, and they also come in different backings. This is a copper backed foil, which you would use on a solid piece of glass, something you cannot see through, because your solder that you use is silver. So you can't see through this, so you can use a copper. Now, if you're using a clear piece of glass, then you need to use a silver backed foil, because if you use this, then you would see silver through your glass, and your solder silver, so it won't make a difference. But I'm going to just demonstrate. Now, this is a foiling wheel, which I've had this one for about 30 years, and they actually still make it exactly like this. But it allows you to foil a little bit faster. Now, some people like to do it totally by hand. They'll take their roll and they'll take off the foil from it, the backing to it, and they will do it totally by hand. I don't do it by hand because it takes a little bit longer. But you would just put it on your wheel, and your wheel kind of crimps it to it. So that helps. And then you press, and it goes totally around, and it will stick. This is very, very sticky. And once you get it totally around, and you want to end at the ends of your glass, not in the middle. It makes it much smoother. Alright, so now this piece is done. Now, the next step to this is, once you get this done, you have to do what is called burnishing. You have to first go around each outside facet, pressing hard, then you lay it flat, and then you have to press it. And this is another not too fun job, but each piece has to be done. Now, when you look at your glass after you've done it, you may see a little tag hanging over. Okay, this little tag has to be taken off with an X-Acto blade, and you would just lay it flat, take your X-Acto blade, and take that little piece off. And like this one here, same thing. You just press. You usually listen to a book on tape, or you listen to TV, or you do something while you're doing this, because it can take a whole evening just to do several pieces. And that's how you burnish. The next step after you burnish then is putting your project together. The next step, once you have each piece burnished, is to put it on a layout table, and you would put it on top of your pattern. Today we're doing quilt panels, and this is a quilt panel. This is called a Carolina Lily, and each piece has already been burnished, and you can see this is my pattern underneath, and you lay it down according to your pattern, and you make sure that it is straight on the edges and so forth. And solder, in order for it to adhere to the copper foil, you have to first use a chemical flux. So each area that you're going to work with, you want to put just a little bit of flux. The step that I'm going to be doing now is called tacking. Tacking, you just want to get it to where it just is barely together, so that when you work with it further, it won't fall apart. So you just take a little bit of solder and put it right over where you fluxed it. This is called tacking. Doesn't take very long. Alright, I'm finished with that. The next step after tacking, as you can see here, I want to remove my pattern because it gets hot and each one's in plastic and it melts it. So I get rid of my pattern, then I continue with the flux and I flux each line that I'm going to work on. Now I'm going to do what is called tinning. Tinning is a very important part of stained glass because it allows the solder to run in between the two pieces, and that's structurally what holds it together. It's kind of the skeleton of stained glass. So with tinning you go kind of a little bit slow, but you can see how it seeps down in between each piece of glass, and you want it to do that. So you would go and tin the entire piece, making sure that it gets down in between. This process doesn't take that long either. And if there is a hole or a gap, I used to think, oh my gosh, there's, it doesn't fit perfect. And everyone that I ever learned stained glass from said, you want some gaps in your glass, because that is what holds it together. The solder can get down in between where those gaps are. So never worry if you have a little bit of a gap. Now this side is totally tinned, and right now it's very, very firm. And then you would continue and you would do your other side, and I see just a little piece of foil hanging there, so you take your X-Acto and you take that off and you get rid of it. You reflux on this side and you would do the same thing. Alright, this is how you would tin and tack. Now Liz is going to show you, once you get this part finished, then you do your final process, which is your final soldering, and she's going to show you how to run lines, bead lines, to finalize your
And to
project.
keep your tip clean.
Yeah, she gets to sit there and do the final. But honestly, she solders better than I do.
This solder's running the best today than it's run in a long time, especially with the fan on. You always want to keep a fan on to keep circulation going, because
It does have a lead content
Yeah.
to it. You can buy lead-free, but it's like 3 times as much.
and right now this is expensive enough. Run your lines and you go back and touch up places if you think you need to. Okay. And on the panels you have to build up your edges. I'll just show you one side because it takes a little bit of time. Put a little solder on your iron and you run it lightly where it's just kind of rounded on. It just gives it a better finish. Okay, and then you go to the back side and you raise the lines again. If you're doing something that's only going to be seen on one side, like a night light or a suction cup, you don't have to raise the lines on the back. And with the cost of solder, we're going to quit doing that. But if it's a sun catcher or a plant stake or something like that, it has to be raised on both sides. Okay, put the chain on. You have little tiny rings. They're called ornament rings. And you've got this little fine chain.
Box chain.
And what you do is you measure from, you have to put it into a solder line. And this is going to hang like this. So you put your chain, your ring here and one here. And you take a little flux and you put it on. You take a dab of solder. And voila. And do the next one, this one the same way. Little flux. Little solder. Something's not going to do right. Voila. And there you have it. It's ready for the ready to be washed up and hang in a window.
Now here's a finished project. It's called a friendship star. It's beautiful. There'll be a suction cup. You can hang it to your window and beautiful light shines through. The one thing I noticed in the shop is there's no Band-Aids. You guys are drawer.
They're in a drawer over
They're
there.
okay. I thought you were that great. You didn't ever cut your
I
finger.
know.
I just
Yes.
thought about it while you were working. That's funny. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're more than
I
welcome.
really enjoyed being out here, and I learned a lot today. And even though it's a little too tedious for me, I like instant results. But I know there's lots of people that do it. So thanks so much.
You have to be patient with
Yeah,
it.
I'm
Yes.
not. We know that.
Thanks for coming.